So here's the latest project. Knocked out a nice African mahogany bench for the front porch. For parties and whatnot, sometimes we have a little bit of limited seating in the backyard. So I designed this so that it would reflect some of the design elements of some Adirondack chairs that I had built in the past. Based off the Wood Whisperers Adirondack Guild build. Great resource, check it out if you haven't seen it already. But basically spar varnish finish, not a lot of special finish going on this project. Knocked it out in a week, built it out of all dominoes and glue. There's no wood in this, or there's no metal in this project. And like I said, week to build, went pretty easy, so let's get started. To get started, I'm going to go ahead and mark out the legs. I have one blank that I've already turned into a sample size for the proper length and width. I'm going to need 3 of them. I'll go ahead and mark this out, make it easier for the camera to see. I find that a jigsaw helps with these larger rough pieces. Don't have to be as concerned about keeping it square or anything. Again, this is just a rough cut so that I can take it to the planer without having to surface this entire board. Next, we're going to head over to the planer, and actually the jointer, then we're going to work on the planer. I had to take several passes on this board. As you can kind of see at the front lip, there's a gap. Had a pretty good twist in this board, and wanted to get a nice straight edge so that when I rip my pieces on the table saw, I had a good reference edge. Now I'm going to bring down all my 4/4 stock to its final dimension. I ended up just a little proud of, I think it was 7/8. I'm going to use that leg I had already milled out. I'm going to shave just the final little bit off and use that same setting to make sure that all my legs are the same dimensions. And since these are square, once I cut it off, I can go ahead and just turn it and get the proper sizing. Since this is a finish cut saw, or finish cut blade, cross cut with lots of teeth, I'm able to get a really nice edge off of this, and it minimizes the sanding that I have to do later on. I'm going to go ahead and just rip everything down to the same dimension for my seat slat boards. And actually the longer boards that created the apron were cut from the same stock. It makes this project go by really quick. You're not dealing with a lot of different measurements as far as cuts for your boards. Squaring off the ends of my board so I can get a good reference edge for my stop block. And you can use a miter saw for the same operation. The blade guard mechanism that lifts it out of the way on mine is kind of broken, so this is just as repeatable as setting up a stop block on a miter saw. And for me, it happens to be safer at this particular time because my miter saw, like I said, is not in its best operating condition. Squaring up the legs now, I'm going to use the same stop block method here. Set this stop block flag in the same position here. I'm actually going to have to move it out of the way. You'll see later that it gets in the way of my saw guide there. This piece is going to dictate the width of the base of the bench frame. And I'm also moving my reference piece over so that I can get a nice reference to ensure a square cut. Since this is such a short piece, it needed a bit of a change. Now I'm going to go ahead and mark out for a decorative feature. Like I mentioned earlier, this bench is being made to complement the Adirondack chairs I made from the Wood Whisperer's plans. To make sure that the design elements of this bench and the chairs were consistent, I used the template I purchased from his site. This is something you can make yourself with scrap wood and a jigsaw, or you can pick it up on their website for $10, I think it was at the time of this recording, and you'll have it for when you decide to build your own Adirondack chairs from his plans. I'm going to just rough out this. I'm going to end up using this piece to make a template for the others. There's a total of 4 of these that I'm making. 2 for the top, 2 for the bottom to hold the support rail. That'll prevent racking, and also give us kind of a place we can put shoes outside to prevent prevent me from bringing grass in after mowing the yard. Now I'm going to use that one as a template. Now what I've done, since I've run out of Turner's tape or double-sided tape, I went ahead and just used some painter's tape to attach these 2 pieces. It did work. I don't know if I would recommend it for anyone else if you're trying to make something that's very precise. I did notice some movement in the pieces, and so if it's not a precise thing, if you don't need an exact replication, it works in a pinch. Now I'm going to lay out the same and kind of repeat the steps here. Just kind of created a center line. Now I'm laying it out and kind of picking what'll look good. I wanted a little wider arch there. I'm not going to show the rest of the bandsaw or shaping of this. It's the exact same thing as the smaller pieces. But this gives you a feeling of
how I mark the template and lay things out so that I can repeat my steps and get a nice balanced design. I am using the Festool Domino XL to make this project. Kind of needed to knock it out quick, and this is a very strong way to produce a relatively slim or elegant design without adding a lot of extra time for mortise and tenons. This project all in all took me about a week, including finishing with spar varnish with 1 day in between coats. There's no way I could have done that as quickly without the dominoes. I knocked out all the joinery for this bench in 1 day. Actually, it was a matter of probably an hour or two total. So if I had tried to do that with mortise and tenon, it would have taken quite a bit longer. So now that we have the frame worked out, we can start working on the top. I'm just going to use the 8mm dominoes as a spacer for the top. They seem to be about the right distance that I was looking for, and it's convenient because I have a lot of them and they're all the same size. Now I'm going to mark my edge for the breadboard ends, and it's just a rough measurement to kind of get them close to size. And then what I'll do is after I do the joinery, I'll flush them up to the sides of the long rails. And again, this could be done at a miter saw. Mine not working, or at least not working in its design configuration. Miter sled ended up working out just fine for me. Got the top back together. Now I'm going to start laying out for where I'm going to put my dominoes. For this project, it's going to be on my front porch. It gets a lot of late day hot sun. In Texas, we're pretty humid, and this will get some rain on it. So I decided to go with two 8x50mm dominoes for each slat. This is probably overkill, but my hope is that this prevents it from warping, and that the boards are thin enough that movement is not going to be an issue tangential to the grain, causing these to split out. If I have issues with it, I'll definitely let you guys know, but I'm hoping that this holds it all sturdy. With the XL on 3/4 stock, I've found that having it propped up gives you the proper measurement. If you try to hold your stock on the surface, the XL will actually not center the dominoes. And I utilized some of the quick clamps to do the edges. Again, this operation went by so fast, the domino just really knocking it all out. If I tried any traditional joinery techniques, this bench would have taken me easily twice as long. I'm a nights and weekends woodworker. I've got a day job. I just do this for fun in my garage. So anything I can do to make myself more efficient is going to be something I definitely want to invest in. Putting a quick round over on all the top pieces there just makes it nicer to touch, prevents chip out, and safer for little kids running around the front porch, I suppose. Now I'm going to use the track saw to go ahead and flush up my breadboard ends. If I use a quick speed square, I can pull the edge of the track guide to it, and I'm going to cut exactly along that guide. So if I'm, even if I'm 128th out or whatever, I can go ahead and flush that up with sandpaper from that point. I'm going to lay out here for a slight curve at the top, just to knock some of the squareness out of this, so that it matches some of the other design elements in the piece. And I don't know if it's noticeable in the finished piece, but I feel like it adds a little something for the eye to kind of follow, softens the piece. I just rounded over the corners here to give me a start of the design, and then I moved on to my spoke shave to give me a nicer finish and something more even. I don't know if it's good or bad, or if someone will, shame me in the comments, but I just use those little tea candles. I use the wax from those on my sole of my planes. Gives me a nice movement to the plane over the wood. And I am using a smoothing plane here. It's a number 4. I'm keeping it on all my pressure on that front knob as I push to make sure I don't take the curve back out. And everyone's favorite pastime in woodworking, sanding. Try to speed this up as much as I could. There was a lot of it in this project, but thankfully it was a lot of flat surfaces, so it went pretty fast. And I didn't show it, but in between the slats, I went ahead and just used free sandpaper sheets and then ran it up and down. Gluing up the dominoes, nothing real new here. Just make sure I get glue in both sides and a little on the domino itself. I will say I got a little more squeeze out on this than I was hoping to. But again, this wasn't my final sanding, so I was able to address all of that with one last final sanding, and I didn't have anything show up through the finish in the final product. And a couple quick clamps. I did add a third one in the middle after I moved this off the bench. It just was going to be a little heavy to try to move all 3. Now I'm going to go ahead and mark for the tapered inset that I have in all the legs. It's coming up 1/2 inch. The guide uses a 1 inch outside diameter and a 1/2 inch bit, and that means that it's going to end up 3/4 inch from the bottom of the leg. This is the jig, again, repurposing. I'm making this bench to go along with the Adirondack chairs in the Wood Whisperers build, so I'm repurposing the same jig. These are the same size legs that I made for the Adirondack chairs. So definitely recommend to check out that build. If you like the look of this bench, you're going to love those chairs. This template's also was actually sourced, I think, from Daryl Peart's book series. Excellent reference if you like the green and green style. So this is a really good and wide use technique to create these insets like this. More sanding. I'm going to go ahead and glue the frame together. I'm going to use some old spar varnish that I had laying around, and some of the finish had started to set up in my fancy orange jug container there. So I'm just going to strain it out first to make sure that I don't have any particulates in there and that everything I'm applying to the surface is finished. Now this wood does appear to be pretty thirsty, so I'm going to go over this quite a few times. But basically I'm just applying finish until it looks like it's not soaking in anymore. This also is the underside, or the bottom of the bench top, so you'll see I put the spacers in there and flip it over, and now this is going to be the top side, which is going to be exposed to the most moisture, sun, wear and tear. So I'm going to spend a little more time on this one to make sure that I get a really nice even coat and that it's nice and deep so that it has the most protection. And obviously this is before I applied finish, but I wanted to show it. I'm marking the center of the posts so that I can drill for dowels later. I like to measure from both sides, and that way even if I'm a little off on my center, I can split the difference and end up right dead center. Here I'm measuring just 1 inch dowel pieces. These are the dowels I'm going to use to attach the top to the base. And I'm going to make my own dowel centers because I can't imagine buying a dowel center for every potential size of dowel. And so I just chuck up a 1 inch piece and run it over a little block plane there until I get a nice point. And this goes pretty quick. Obviously we're in fast forward, but doesn't take long at all. Now I can look at my reference marks from earlier and put my dowels right where they need to be. And once I have them where I want them, put a little downward pressure, pop it a couple of times, I'll end up with a nice little dent in the wood, and that's where I'll start drilling. And I'm sure this is a trick you've all seen before, but I use painter's tape, mark to the depth that I want to drill. Once it starts moving the drilling or the shavings out of the way, then I know I've reached my depth. And this is my finished project. Thanks for watching.